Hello, I'm Trevor from L2L Support, and today I'm going to walk you through Administrator Manager Security Settings and Module Permissions. Administrator access will be easier to maintain and control in terms of what rights and permissions are granted to whom, as well as the sites to which the access applies. The setup screen, which is visible only to administrators, is accessible from the main menu in the bottom left corner under Setup. Note that the Administrator Security Settings are located under the User Setup section of the Setup page. After opening the Administrator Security Settings view, you will see the role definitions for each administrator subrole, as well as the Add New, Export, and Filter radio buttons. Note that not all of these options will be visible or accessible to every administrator level account holder. Let's start with defining the various administrator security settings roles. Resource managers can add and edit resource categories, rates, shifts, and trades. User managers can add and edit users, groups, roles, notifications, and time tracking. API managers can add and edit API keys. System managers can add and edit areas, lines, machines, tooling, cost centers, and dispatch setup, etc. IT managers can add and edit SAML configs, LDAP configs, IP access restrictions, and user devices. Administrators can perform all of the above functions and can edit administrator security permissions. All administrator managers have visibility to the Administrator Security Settings link under User Setup so they can view all the administrator managers and their access levels. By granting administrator privileges on an individual basis, by module, L2L Site Champion, or the designated site administrator manager will more closely control exactly who has access to what sites and modules, as well as their level of permissions within each module. Note that all settings, access permissions, and rights are for the administrator manager user's home server only. Please note that it is necessary for an individual to have an administrator level L2L account to be afforded specific administrator manager permissions and access. For example, a user manager admin can add and edit users, groups, roles, notifications, and time tracking, but cannot add and edit resource categories, rates, shifts, and trades unless that individual also is a resource manager administrator. Next, let's move on to module permissions. These permissions can be granted in the user setup or within the individual module settings by an administrator within that module. Let's start with the Documents module permissions. Authors can add, check out, and edit documents and pass revisions. Publishers, in addition to the Documents author, can manage document categories and publish documents. Approvers may approve document revisions. Administrators, in addition to all permissions granted to the document publisher, can manage users. Let's now move on to the Scheduler module permissions. Schedulers can modify existing schedules but cannot alter launch or due dates. Managers can additionally create schedules and alter launch and due dates. Administrators can set up permissions and upload schedules. Let's now move on to the Production module permissions. Production planners can add and edit the pitch schedule. Let's now move on to the Skills module permissions. Managers can add and edit trainers and user skills. Trainers may edit user skills. Administrators may add and edit in all skill-related areas. Let's move on to the Spares module permissions. Issuers can issue a part from the queue. Purchasers can purchase a part. Inventory managers may add categories, units of measure, receive parts, and manage inventory. Administrators, in addition to all permissions granted to the spares issuer, purchaser, and inventory manager, the administrator user can also add users and grant permissions. Let's now move on to work order permissions. Approvers may approve work orders. Schedulers can assign resources and schedule work orders. Administrators can do everything that the approvers and schedulers may perform and set up categories and permissions. Let's now move on to administrator permissions across sites on a shared server. Under User Setup, you may give a user, resource, or administrator module settings for a site. For example, under a user profile, you choose the user group, and underneath that, you may select user authorization groups for the specific modules. Also, if you are an administrator, you may grant or remove permissions under each module setting as well. Something you need to be aware of in user setup is what sites a user has access to. The reason being that if a user, resource, or administrator has certain permissions under user authorization groups and they have access to more than one site, that user has those same permissions on all sites. If you remove certain permissions from one site, it will remove those permissions from all sites associated with that user. If this has happened to you, please reach out to a site champion or L2L support to assist. Thank you for watching. If you have any additional questions, feel free to go watch our other tips and tricks videos or reach out to us on our support site.